Hey friends, thanks for clicking on this video. I'd like to welcome all the new subscribers and thank everybody for remembering to click the like button, hit the thumbs up button, and also for subscribing. A couple videos back I talked about the grip section in my 1858 Remington 36 caliber, and I showed a little bit of what I had done to get to that point. Well, after recently shooting my 58 Remington Sheriff's model 44 caliber, I now have reached the point to where I want to make that grip section a little more comfortable. So what I'm going to do in this particular video is give you some more close-ups of the avenue that I took to accomplish that, and I hope that for some of you, if you find that grip section uncomfortable in your 58 Remingtons, it might give you some food for thought in how to accomplish this. Now I will tell you, the last time I shot my 58 Remington Sheriff's model, I had realized and or looked more closer at the cylinders and realized they had not been chamfered. There's a lot of guys on YouTube that talk about doing it. A lot of guys show how they do it and the benefits of it, and I'm gonna just show you here real quickly why I'm electing to do it. Okay, this is the cylinder out of my Navy, and if the sun is hitting it just right, you can see that from the factory it was deburred or chamfered. And I'm going to try to keep this in the camera so that you can see it, and I'm hoping that the sun is reflecting enough off of the cylinder that you can actually see it. Let me focus in and out, get you a couple different views. From where I'm standing, you can see right there the deburring of those cylinder chambers. Now, I already went ahead and did that in the cylinder, my Sheriff's model, and with that particular revolver, when I bought it, it came with a spare cylinder, and I had another 58 Remington 44 caliber Pietta with the 8-inch barrel, and when I sold it, I kept that cylinder. Now, one of those cylinders, I don't know if it's going to reflect as well, but this particular cylinder had been chamfered, it had been deburred. Not much, but you can actually see it. With one of the other cylinders that I received or got with either the gun, got with the gun I should say, this one was never chamfered or deburred. So I'm going to do that right now, kind of give you an idea just how simple it really is. Now, I did not go out and buy a chamfering tool specifically for doing this, but the one that I have that I use in my reloading when I have to trim up cases works just fine. Let me demonstrate. Okay, here's the cylinder. Here's the reaming tool, if you want to call it a reaming tool. I just set it in there and just turn ever so slowly. Try to turn it square and straight. Just make a couple of turns. And you can see, I hope you can see, that it is removing some of that metal and it is creating a chamfer. So just simply go around all 6 cylinders and deburr it or put a chamfer in it. Now this is supposed to help the loading made a little bit easier, and from what I'm told, it does help increase accuracy, but that's for you to decide. And hopefully the sun can kind of pick it up and reflect you can see where the metal is shiny, and it is deburring it. So I'm going to go to work on this, get it all done, and I'll show you what I do to clean it up. At this point, I've decided to go ahead and do both cylinders just to deepen the chamfering on that other cylinder. Bear in mind, the purpose of this is not really to widen the holes per se. It's just a matter of making it a little easier to load and to clean up any burrs that may have been left behind. So what I'm going to do now is take some steel wool, just rub it around the top where I've very easily removed some metal. And yes, I only used hand pressure. That's all that was required. So I'm going to clean it up with some steel wool, and then I'm going to take some 1000 grit sandpaper and wrap it around my thumb and just work it around the hole just to clean up any deburring or any chatter marks that was left behind from the tool. Let me see if I can't get that as I spin that. I mean, at least from where I'm standing right now behind the camera, I can see the sun reflecting. And there again, once you think you've done a proper job, look at it and look at every single ring and see if it's even. And from where I'm standing and from what I looked at a little bit more close up, they were pretty much even. So I'm going to work at cleaning them up, and then I'm going to go ahead and blue them. Working from behind the camera, 1000 grit sandpaper, just with my thumb, just cleaning out any burrs that may have been left behind from the reamer, chamfering tool, whatever you want to call it. Now, while I had all of this out, I went ahead and did my 36 caliber Navy model, opened up those throats just a little bit. Now, I can just imagine somebody's already typing, "Oh, you didn't use the right angle, you didn't use the right tool to do the job." Well, sorry, but this is my gun, and this is what I chose to do. And it's not going to hurt the firearm whatsoever. I've even seen guys use a grinding stone disc and a drill press and do and accomplish the same thing. But hey, your weapon is your weapon. You decide what you want to do with your weapon. This is what I have chosen to do, and I'm just sharing my method in doing this, maybe to perhaps to give some of you friends food for thought. So I'm going to go ahead and get these cleaned up, get these blued, and then I'm going to take apart my sheriff's model and start taping it up, and I'll show you at that point what I did, scribing the lines to what ended up being the removal of the metal in the grip section. Stay tuned. Okay, friends, something else that I want to point to as far as an item of quality control. If you look right here where the arbor pin goes in, you can see that it's beveled going into the arbor, where the pin rides. That's put there to help some of that grease get into, the arbor pin to help keep the cylinder greased. Now, on this particular cylinder, the factory cut it like it should be. My 58 Navy factory did the same thing. Now, on the one cylinder that I had talked about earlier and showed earlier that they didn't even deburr it or, cut the chamfer in it, I actually took that same tool and had to cut a little bit of a chamfer in it right here. It's not as big as it is from the factory, but the point being is that's also another quality control issue that you might want to be looking at. If you don't have enough of a chamfer right here, then you're not going to really ensure that you're getting enough lubrication on your cylinder pin. Just something you might want to look at, friends. Okay, I'm going to put a little bit of oil on that one, let it set, and then I'm going to go to taking apart my 58 Remington Sheriff's model. Okay, I have the firearm disassembled, and some of you that are new to the channel and not having seen the video I did previously, you might be asking, how did you get the cylinder pin out? And yes, let me make a correction. I realize I had been saying arbor pin, but I should be saying the cylinder pin. That's tomato, tomato, potato, potato. If you go back on the channel, you'll see how I described doing this, but now that I have the gun apart and up close, if you recognize or look at your gun right from here, if you just round off these two corners on this side and the opposite side, see if I can get a close-up. You can see where it's shiny right there. If you just round that off, and I only took 220 grit popsicle stick and just worked at it, and the more I worked at it, the more I could see that the cylinder pin was going to drop and clear the latch. It's not difficult. It took me maybe 20 minutes to do, and I had the job done. So that's to answer that question right there. Just remove some of the metal right here and on the opposite side also, and that cylinder pin will just drop right out. Okay, all I did was make a series of dots at the 1/8 of an inch mark, and you can either go from the front towards the inside or from the inside toward the outside. That's up to you. And all I did was just, like I said, made a series of dots and then just played connect the dots. And you can decide what you want to do at the heel down here. I'm just bringing this curve to that point, to this point right here. Let me get in the camera, to this point. You can decide what you want to do. I'm more concerned with relieving the metal in here and giving my hand, my grip, more room in through here. So I have a brand new set of sanders. I showed in the previous video the sanding method. I'm not going to record it at this point because you should already have an idea, but I'm going to go ahead and go to sanding, and when I get it all done, I'll show you the end product. Just a quick note here, friends. If you're going to elect to do this, make sure that when you grind, for a little bit on this side, flip the gun over, and grind a little bit here. Same thing. That way there, it'll kind of help in keeping everything square. Just a note. So far, it's looking pretty good. And yes, I have a can of water handy because from time to time, you're gonna have to cool it off. Don't have a whole lot more to go. Let me just kind of put everything in view of the camera here so you can still get an idea of just how simple this really is. So I went to Harbor Freight, bought one of these sanding disc kit. That's all I'm using. So far I've used one of the big ones, and I've used two of the smaller ones, and now I'm using this smaller one at 120 grit. And the reason I'm doing that is just simply because as you get up into this area, you don't want to take off a whole lot of metal right in through here. So you want to, work with the bigger discs from here to about in here, and then, size it down. And then when you get to this point, you want to go to the small one. Just makes it that much easier, and you can avoid, doing what I did right here. For me, that's not a big deal because not a whole lot came off beyond just the bluing. So I'm just going to end up sanding that with 120, 220 grit sandpaper, and then finishing off with 1,000 before I blew it. And then just bear in mind, as you do this, you have to pull your tape back down over the edge so you can get a good clear view on your mark. So I still have a little bit to go, but it's doing exactly what I want it to do. Okay, I've got it down to where I want to leave it for right now, just simply because I'm going to install the grips and then sand the grips down even with the frame. Now I do recognize that I have to, let's see here, square this up just a little bit right here in the front. I know the shadows are getting long. Camera can really pick it up that great, but it's not quite square or rounded. If you kind of look at the top or the back of it, you can see how it's just a little rounded right there. Well, I'm going to match that here in the front, but that will be done with the file. So let's, I'm going to put the grips on these and see how much metal we actually removed. Now there again, I don't know how well. There we go, we're in the sun, so you should be able to see how much metal was actually removed. I'll pause it right there for a moment so you can focus in on it. I know when it comes to the wood, it doesn't look like much, but it's actually a full 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to put the other grip on it, put the screw in it, and go ahead and start sanding the grip to match the frame, and then the rest of it will be done by hand. Okay, well, that's where I'm at right now. I've just about got the grips matched to the frame. I'm going to do the rest of it by hand because obviously I'm going to have to sand some of the profile back here because it's way too fat across here. So that will be done with rasps and done by hand, and when I get all that done, I'll turn the camera back on and show you what the progress is. Okay friends, I'm right at the point where I've sanded this down to 1,000 grit. I like the depth, I like the profile. I rounded off the bottom right here, and I'm ready to blue it. I'm just going to give you guys a little bit of filler information right here. In a previous video, I talked about filing down to this point so that your hammer will set deeper and allow you to have a much more positive lock. When I did that video, an afterthought came, and I actually employed it in this particular Remington revolver. And there was a commenter that had made a comment regarding this, but I had already done this before I read his comment, so I don't want anybody to think that I'm taking his information and making it mine. It just, I want to acknowledge what I had thought about after I did my 58 Remington Navy and talking about what Blackie Thomas had discussed, filing it down. Years ago, the first two Remington kits that I made, I did the same thing with just the one. But what I did is, if you look at the hammer on my Sheriff's model, before filing any more notches or just wanting to see for myself if that might be an easier way of doing it, I went ahead and cut that little notch off. And what I did discover is, yes, with that notch cut off like that, that little square 90-degree, it does fit better. Now I know the camera's not going to really show it ideally, but if you have a 58 Remington, just take that corner off, but you don't want to get into where it actually hits the cap. You want to stay below that. And then I think if you friends just try that, just take off a little bit, you'll be able to see once it's reinstalled that it does fit deeper into the safety notches. And obviously that's a lot less time consuming than taking a file and, you know, doing what I did with my Navy and with this particular Sheriff model. Because like I said, I have 3 cylinders for my Sheriff's model. So that's what I did. Just take that tip off just a little bit, and you'll see that it does fit a whole lot deeper into that safety notch. So I'm going to go to bluing because I got the polishing done to 1000 grit, and I acetoned everything so it should be good and clean. So now I'm just going to blue it and give you a little bit of filler information, as I just stated here a moment ago and in a previous video. Oh, before I go any further, I have to correct a previous statement in this particular video. I did not purchase this gun. I mistakenly said that. My wife actually purchased this. She went shopping one day and stopped by Cabela's, and she picked this up for me. So it was a very nice thing for her to do. But as I blew this, I'd give you a little bit of, you know, background information with me and black powder revolvers. Once again, my first black powder revolver I ever purchased came in kit form. It was actually purchased from Navy Arms. I do not remember who the manufacturer was, but I bought it as a kit, just your standard 58 Remington 8-inch barrel, and I did everything that was necessary except for what I did do and I did not like, is I chose to plum brown everything. And when I get everything done, the plum browning turned out great, but it's not what I really liked personally. I really like the blued look on these guns. So I sold that revolver, and then I bought another kit revolver, once again from Navy Arms, and I blued it, and I really liked it. It turned out great. Both firearms, both guns shot very, very well. But in time, I needed some cash, being, you know, newly married, first couple of years. So I sold the gun. We needed the cash. And then after that, the next black powder revolver I purchased was once again from the distributor Navy Arms. And that was the 1851, only that was in .44 caliber, and that had a brass frame. Now I'm going to be doing a separate video talking about that particular revolver, because there's was quite a bit involved with that revolver, and I'm in the process right now of purchasing another 51 Navy .44 caliber steel frame from a friend. And also, if everything goes correctly, I will be purchasing a 61 Navy. So hopefully I'll have in my possession by the end of this week those 2 revolvers, and then I'll talk a little bit more about my 51 Navy and .44 caliber with the brass frame, because there was quite an ordeal with that particular gun. But once I resolved that ordeal, I needed some money again, so I sold that gun to a friend. And then after that, I had purchased my first 1860 Army. And once again, from Navy Arms, I don't recall who the manufacturer was, but I really liked that particular 60 Army. Felt good, shot good, all that good stuff. But in time, I had to get rid of that gun once again. And then after that gun, I ended up purchasing a Mitchell Arms revolver that shot the .45 Long Colt. Now, I really adored that particular gun. But there again, in time, I had to sell that gun, you know, due to family responsibilities. So I sold that gun, and then in time, when financially things were more acceptable to me and my family, I ended up purchasing another 1860 Army. And that gun I purchased from Cabela's, and that was the stainless steel model. Now, I had some issues with it, nothing that I couldn't overcome, but I want to just save that for a different video. From there, I actually traded that gun for my Traditions Trapper model, and you'll scroll back, you'll see me actually shooting that gun and getting that ready for a rendezvous. And from there, I ended up picking up at a rendezvous another 58 Remington, which was a Pietta model. Liked the gun, shot good, but I decided to go ahead and sell that to a friend of mine. And then I picked up a second 58 Remington, also from Cabela's, and I kept that gun for just a little while until my wife purchased this one. Then I sold that Remington. So for all the years that I've been involved with black powder guns, by far and large, I've actually owned more Remingtons than I have, you know, the Colt reproductions. I can't say specifically why I favored that, but that's just the way things worked out. So, as you have seen in these videos already, I also now have another 1860 Army, which I really like a lot. I have the 61 Navy, which I really like a lot. And I have these two Remingtons, which, you know, I really like a lot. So anyhow, that's some of the background history on me and black powder guns. And while I was talking, did you friends count how many applications of blue I put on this gun? Because I kind of forgot. But anyhow, it's actually turning out really well. I've got the grips profiled just about to where I want them. I have a little bit of wood up here that I can remove. The problem that I have right now is that right here, if I remove any of the wood right here as it rides and sits along the back strap, then the back strap will be protruding. So as we speak, my wife is kind enough to run to the hardware store and get me some of that citrus strip. From what I understand and what I've seen also on YouTube from wood finishers, that citrus strip seems to be about one of the best paint removers, vinyl removers, or just plain old stain removers. And that's what I want to do back here is remove this factory reddish stain and then get it right with my and then reapply some black walnut stain, as I did in my Navy. In my Navy, I didn't have that problem sanding the old factory stain away because it was a little proud, and I had just a little bit of wood to work with, and it turned out satisfactory. So anyhow, I'm gonna put one, maybe two more coats of super blue, and then I'll go to working on the handles, the grips, and hopefully I can get that reddish colored stain out of there. Thanks for letting me talk a little bit. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you here in just a few moments. Okay, now we've come to the portion of trying to get the old stain off of the grips. And I'm going to be trying this citrus strip, and there's been a number of YouTube videos really praising this product. So I'm going to give it a try. It says to shake well, which I've already done, and apply it to the wood or to the surface you need to strip the paint from and or the stain. Let it set anywhere from 30 minutes to 24 hours. God, I hope this doesn't take 24 hours, but I'm going to go ahead and apply it liberally, let it set, and come back in 30 minutes and just check and see what's going on, if anything. Well, if the Q-tip is any, let me get this in the camera, if the Q-tip is any indication that the stain is coming off, it's on the Q-tip. Maybe this stuff is really worth its weight in gold. Yeah, there's quite a bit of that coming off onto the Q-tip already. Hey guys, I think this is one time when, you know, more is better. Okay, I'm going to let these set for 30 minutes or so, come back out and check them. Okay friends, it's been 1 hour and I've worked on one side. I just kind of wanted to see where it was at before I actually show you what I had done to help remove some of the stain. I'm going to try to get zoomed in on it just a little bit, kind of give you a close-up of it. Now I'll try to keep everything in the camera. If you look at that, you can kind of identify where I've already sanded, relieved the wood in the grip section, and what you're seeing in the coloration right now is just some of the stain that's bled over there through using the citrus strip. The bottom of it is still pretty dark. At this point I'm not sure if that's actually going to come out or not. So I kind of wanted to do this first, kind of show you, you know, what I did to get it at least to this point. I have some Scotch-Brite, the green Scotch-Brite, and I just took a corner of it and then just tried to scrub the grip down as much as I could to remove some of the stain. So let me just give you a quick demonstration here. Some of the other videos that I've watched on YouTube with other people using the citrus strip, they recommend using the Scotch-Brite also. So that's why I'm using this. It's coming off. Put some elbow grease into it and it'll come off. So I'm going to keep working with this. Like I said, I'll probably put some more on it, let it sit another hour, come back out and just see what the results are. Stay tuned. Alright, this has been another hour having these grips soak into the citrus strip and a little bit of elbow grease, and in my opinion they're cleaning up pretty good. I have to apologize for the lighting a little bit. It's about 5:30 and the sun's setting here in New Mexico, but a little bit of elbow grease, and I think at this point I'm going to get right down to the wood itself. You know, having been or being a custom knife maker, I always tried to pride myself in having matching sides to the knife so that when you look at one side of the knife you see the pattern on the other side of the knife handle. I really wish that when Pietta had grabbed these pieces of walnut to make the grips, I really wish they'd have had a thicker piece and sliced it, because I really like these dark grains that's in this particular piece of walnut. The opposite side, I haven't cleaned the Citra strip off, but I can tell you right now, and you can probably see even through the Citra strip, there's no dark stripes in this particular side of the grip. I mean, it would have been really amazing, in my opinion, if that's what they had done, but obviously they did not. And I got myself a clean Scotch-Brite, and I'm going to work on this one here just a little bit, and then I'll probably call it an evening. Just a quick note on the bottom. From what I can tell, and it's probably because of the grain structure, the grain direction, that reddish colored stain's not coming out as easy as it is on the front side. And to be honest with you, where they're at right now, I might just elect to go ahead and put a light black walnut stain on it and just let the colors blend and see what it turns out. But I'm going to wait till in the morning. I'm going to finish the day up by scrubbing these down, washing them down with mineral spirits, and then washing them down afterwards with acetone, and then letting them dry overnight, and then seeing what they look like in the morning, and then make a decision at that point. Okay, carrying on. After I shut the camera off yesterday evening, I went through and cleaned the Citra strip off of the grips with mineral spirits. Let them dry for just a couple of minutes, and then I went after them with a very wet cloth with acetone. This is the rag I used, and granted, it's dried overnight, and I'm hoping with the sunlight and everything else you can still see that even with the acetone I was able to pull out quite a bit of that reddish colored factory stain. Brought them in the house, let them dry overnight, and this is how they dried out. And even the bottom of them, as I discussed earlier, I thought I was going to have a problem getting that stain pulled out of the bottom of the grip. Well, if the camera's picking everything up and try to get it in the sunlight as much as I can, we can see that that stain came out of even the bottom of the grip. So I was very pleased and happy with the way the grips turned out. And yeah, you might still be able to see maybe just a little bit of the reddish stain right there, but I'm hoping that it'll blend in. Now, when I discussed a little bit about, the grain in the wood, I wish they would have slabbed these and then cut them in half so I can have matching grains on both sides of the grip. Well, that obviously didn't happen. But since I mentioned earlier I do make knives, this is what I like doing, taking the walnut and slabbing it so that when you put this piece of walnut on both sides of your knife, when you look at both sides, you have a matching grain. So what I'm going to do now is do some testing with stains and talk a little bit about where I'm going to go with this, and doing a test with the stain, because I have some Danish oil with a medium walnut, and then I have what I used before, the dark walnut. So let me get resituated here, and I'm going to put some of the Danish oil on one side of one of these slabs, and I'll put the dark walnut stain, and we'll see how it turns out. Okay, just to give you a quick overview here, this is what the Danish oil Watco what the medium walnut stain looks like. And it is actually a very, very good oil for these type of projects if you don't want to put like a true oil coating on it after the fact. And then this is just, you know, as most of you would recognize, the dark walnut. And had a phone call in the middle of doing all of this. Hi, John. It was very nice talking with you. And John does visit this channel from time to time. In fact, we've actually rendezvoused on multiple occasions, so it was very good to hear from this friend that I haven't actually talked to for a little while. So in amongst all of that, I went ahead and decided to go with the darker stain. I just kind of favor the darker stain on gun grips. On knife grips, I really prefer the lighter stain. So I just kind of wanted to, you know, bring that out, because obviously when you do a project like this, they always recommend testing a small sample to see if that's what you're going to like or dislike. And since I have plenty of walnut, I was able to do that. So at this point in the video, I'm actually ready to wash the gun, clean everything up, reassemble. The last thing that I actually have to do with the gun is shorten up the screw that goes right here that changes the angle of your hammer spring. And when I get to that point, I'll just turn the camera on and just show you what an easy thing it is to do. Alright, so stay tuned. Okay, friends, come to the critical point in this video, and that's reinstalling the tension screw on the hammer spring. And this is where the rubber's going to meet the pavement, because you're only going to get one shot at it. So as it stands right now, I have no tension on the spring, and you can see there's not much of a forward, you know, much striking pressure. And why I say you're only going to get one shot at this, because if you take off too much and you don't like, you know, the hammer pressure, the spring tension, well, you can't put the metal back on. So what you'll need to do is work it in just a little bit and check it. See if that's what you like. If you don't like it, then tighten it up just a little bit more and get a feel. Because like I said, you're not going to get a second shot at this. Couple more turns. Draws back enough that I think I'm going to like. See, and there again, at this point it might be better to have it a little heavy, because once I cut that little bit off, I can always go back with a jeweler's file, a little file, and file off just a little bit. But if you kind of look at this right now, approximately that amount needs to come off the threaded end. So I have to take it out of the gun. I'm going to do it off camera with my Dremel tool. And if you're going to do this, I would strongly recommend getting the thinnest cutting off blade disc that Dremel has available. I've used the thicker ones, and sometimes if you're not real careful, the thicker ones are a little deceiving in the amount of metal that they actually take off. So you'll want to use the thinner blade, the thinner disc, to do this. And I cannot reiterate and state enough, once you take the metal off, you cannot put it back on. So let me go to work with this. Like I said, as of right now, it kind of feels good with the draw, and you guys can hear that there's enough snap. So I'm going to go to work, and I'm going to be taking off about that much on the back end of the screw. And the whole idea is that when this screw bottoms, the bottom of the little channel that it rides in, you'll see it. That's going to be where everything ends up being. So let me go to work on this and I'll show you what the end result is going to be. Well, I had hoped to record the rest of this outside, but as you could tell, hopefully, it is snowing, it's cold, and it's windy. So the conclusion of this video will be recorded indoors. I kind of want to talk a little bit about a hiccup that I had, but overall the revolver turned out extremely satisfactory, and I'll get to that in just a moment. Well, there's the finished product. I'm very happy with the way it turned out. The grips turned out very well, and obviously, as explained earlier, my intention was to give me more room between the back of the trigger guard and what would be the front of the inside of the grip section. I managed to take off a full 1/8 of an inch along this entire, well, I shouldn't say along, but at least right in through here. I didn't take off as much in this section just simply because that's not where the discomfort was coming from. The discomfort was coming from right in here. But one thing that you'll want to bear in mind if you're going to do this is the little hole that your tension screw sets into for your main spring. You're going to make that shallow as you remove the metal. And I removed enough metal so that the screw actually bottomed out and it protruded, or it protrudes ever so slightly. And I'm pretty sure the camera can pick that up. Now for me, that's not in the way of me gripping the gun. Now there's one or two ways that you can resolve that. First of all, you have to get the length of the screw as it rides up against your main spring. You need to remove that amount of metal on the back. When I was doing this, I just removed off what I thought I needed to remove, went back through with a file, and I kept filing everything down until the screw bottomed out, the bottom of the hole, but yet it left me with enough tension on the mainspring. If for some reason that doesn't work for you, what you can do is get a flat bottom drill bit that's the size of that hole, and then just take a little bit of that metal off the bottom of the hole, and it will naturally, deepen the hole. Let me flip the gun around so you can look at the other side of the grip section, the handle. As I described earlier, it would have been nice if they had one piece of walnut so that I could see this darker stripe on the other side. But either way, it turned out good. Now I need to talk just a little bit about a hiccup that I had. I'm not sure what happened, when it happened, but when I went to go put this gun back together and work the action, something felt wrong. And what I discovered, give me a moment, and I'll put some less than perfect artwork in front of you. Okay, now that everybody's got the laughs out of the way, obviously this is the hammer, this would be a half-cock notch, and this would be your, your notch to fire the gun. This is a front profile of the trigger. I know, I'm still laughing. And this would be a side profile of the trigger. Like I said, I'm not sure what happened, but I went to go put the gun back together and started working the action. Something felt amiss. Took the gun apart, looked to see what it was, couldn't see it right off the bat. Put the gun back together thinking maybe something wasn't aligned, which we know they're all going to line up. But what eventually I discovered is that on the trigger, across the plane up here, that would sit inside of your half-cock notch and also on the firing position, a little bit of this corner was broken right here. And I found that piece of metal on the inside of the safety notch. So the only thing that I could deduce from that is that the trigger was not properly hardened, and it just so happened to let go when I was doing all of this work. So what did I do to resolve it? Well, I got the metal, the broken piece of metal, out of the safety notch, and then I took my file and I refiled the flat plane across here. Now obviously we all recognize when you do that, you change how it sets into the firing position. So when I reassembled the gun, obviously at the firing position full cock, it would not stay in place. And as I've stated before, if you're going to do any of this, go slow, because you can never put it back on once it's off, unless you know this little trick and you have the equipment to do it. Now if you look at the side profile of this poorly drawn out trigger, when you look at the trigger, you'll see that on the back side there is just ever so slightly a curve, and that's where it would curve into the safety notch and then curve into your firing location. Okay, so that's why this curve is here. So what I did on my anvil, I found a spot on the horn that matched the curve. Once I did that, I hammered a couple of times with a small ball peen hammer so that I could draw the metal longer. When I did that, I had to also hammer in here and back in here to square everything back up. I reassembled the gun, checked it out. I didn't draw enough metal. So I took everything apart, put it back on the anvil, and lo and behold, I had enough metal drawn so that when it was into the firing position, it locked. But the issue I had at that point, because I lengthened it this way and then cleaned it up this way, that changed the angle of the sear. So how did I resolve that angle issue? Well, I colored it in with a black Sharpie. Now some guys will use Dykem, which is great, but I don't have any Dykem. So I just used a black Sharpie, installed it into the gun, worked the action several times, and where the metal is wearing, where it ought not to be wearing or touching, I filed that away, and I did that multiple times until when I put the black Sharpie colored in the metal here and here, and also in here too, because you want to see how it's setting in your half cock. Once I worked it several times, all of the Sharpie wore off on a straight line across the top. And at this point, the gun functions properly. Let me demonstrate. Okay. There's the safety. Locked up good and solid. And there's your full cock. Okay, so that's what I did. Now, just so you'll recognize, and yes, I did order a new hammer, a new trigger, a new mainspring, a new pawl, a new trigger bolt spring, a new bolt, just in case something somewhere down the line does let go. Now that I have the gun where I want it, my next step is that I'm going to take the trigger off the gun and I'm going to re-case harden that trigger, because ultimately I do suspect that the trigger itself was not case hardened properly. That's my best guess. I've never dropped the gun or anything like that, so I'm just guessing from the factory it was not properly hardened. So I'm going to eventually do that, but I will probably do that after I get the other parts. So anyhow, friends, thank you for watching this video. Thank you for indulging a long-winded old fart. But ultimately, I hope you friends can take something away from these videos that I've done explaining how you can open up this grip section in here and make these guns a little bit more comfortable. And ultimately, it's going to make your shooting sessions just that much more enjoyable. So once again, friends, thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and also to share this with your bestest of buddies. And also bear in mind that if you're still looking for a good source for pre-lubricated felt wads, please feel free to visit this channel on Etsy. Lane Beaver Trading Company is the same as the channel name, and I have an ample supply of pre-lubricated felt wads available. Have a great day, guys. Bye.